born gentle and weak. At his death, he is hard and stiff. Green plants are tender and filled with sap. At their death, they are withered and dry. Therefore the stiff and unbending is the disciple of death. The gentle and yielding is the disciple of life. Thus an army without flexibility never wins a battle. A tree that is unbending is easily broken. The hard and strong will fall. The soft and weak will overcome.
It always comes up with people about why life happens to them the way it does. Why certain things can only happen to them this way and not that way. Some people consider it to be bad luck. But what I'd like to suggest to you is that it might have something to do with our karma and what our karma is really all about in this lifetime. Everybody has come into this life engaged in a previous life. In fact, some of us are still engaged in that previous life while we're here in this one. It gets very complicated, and I'm not going to go into all of that with you today, but I would like you to understand something. The way things happen for you and me in this life is the only way they could happen for you and me in this life. It's just the only way. Now, the reason being for any of that is because of my karma, the way I have lived in the past, how I have treated past lifetimes, and what I have done with myself in my life. Now, the importance of all of this is obviously that nothing changes until I do. So what would break my karma? What would allow me to move on? This is a key point that most people want to know. But even if I tell you, you're not going to do it. And if I share it with you, which I'm going to share it with you, you're not going to be able to do it because your understanding will prevent it. People live in a certain understanding. That understanding is really typically very small, very limited. Basically because how many thoughts can I have before I can't have any more thoughts about any given subject, and I start to be confused. How I make my thoughts roll out of me and how I use each and every thought and weave some kind of illogic in it, make it appear to be not only logical but theoretically true, makes for a real ugly life and why we're totally confused. But I have an antidote. The antidote I'm going to share with you comes from Lao-tzu. I want you to listen to this. A man is born gentle and weak. At his death, he is hard and stiff. Green plants are tender and filled with sap. What is he saying? He's saying when we're born, we're supple. But when we die, we become rigid. What is it that a green plant has that we don't? There's something called the sap. And what is the sap of life? It is the willingness to understand beyond my understanding. It is the willingness to give when I don't believe I should give. It's the willingness to forgive when I don't think I need to forgive. It is living in love at all costs to my ego, my pride, and my vanity. Now you're going to hear loads of spiritual teachers talk to you about love, love, love. We've heard it even in songs. But love is one thing and loving is another. The love that you and I are akin to strictly is conditional. And it has conditions and situations to it that make me very brittle. Have you ever looked at people? You look at young people, you look at babies, you look at, between the ages of birth and let's say 4 years old. They are supple. They're very impressionable. There's a ebb and flow to them that is really unique. And then we take that away from them because we need to make them a person. We need to make them in the image of our own likeness. And we work very diligently at it. Parents come to me all the time. I don't understand how my kid could be the way he is. Well, really? You don't understand? You don't get who you are? You don't see how you've infused in the child the hatred, the fear, the anger? You don't get it? It's all there, but nobody wants to admit it's there. Nobody really wants to see it. Why? Because most of us don't have the capacity to forgive ourselves. That's the sap. Can you forgive? Can you look at yourself and make course corrections? You can let yourself off the hook. Everybody does to one degree or another. But that doesn't mean I've forgiven myself. With forgiveness comes change, evolution, transformation, metamorphosis. And if I don't have any of those things in my forgiveness, then all I'm doing is just pawning it off and saying I forgive. Forgiveness is a lifestyle. It is not something you and I declare. I don't declare forgiveness, I live it. And I have to live it every single moment of my life. I have to be, so to speak, supple. And that's what Lao-tzu is talking about here. Being so supple on the inside that no matter what it is I'm going through or what I have to forgive, I see it as a way of life. Look at your life for a moment. What would you say you most need to forgive? Well, most people would look at that and say, well, my past. Maybe something in your past that you've done, something you wish you hadn't done, some regret. But there's no real remorse in what we've done. We just want that whole thing taken away. We haven't learned how to see our actions and our reactions and how they cause karma. And instead of punishing ourselves for those things, to actually begin to learn something from it. There is something in me that isn't changing. There's something in me that isn't maturing. And finding that something is the meaning of this day and this life. There's so much to the three treasures of the Tao, and I'm sure you didn't get everything that I offered here. So I go into the studio and I make very, very important CDs for you. They have all of the discourses I've offered to you here on TV, but also much more in depth. And I think you'll find them very beautiful and very meaningful. If the Tao is to your heart's content, which it is, I think you'll want to order these right away. Go to my website at aspire.org and order yours today. Now back to Aspire. Recently, I was in a counseling session with one of my more difficult students, and I asked this person, I said, so what have you accomplished? He said, oh, I've done this seminar and that seminar and da-da-da-da-da-da. I love hearing all the seminars they've done. And they think if they have seen somebody of some notoriety at a seminar that they're at the right one. So he was telling me all of this. And I said, so what has this given you? He said, well, there wasn't anything there I didn't already know before. Oh, really? Then why were you there? And he looked at me and goes, because I knew it before. It confirmed what I know, Greg. That's the problem. What about all the things we don't know? What if my whole life and my karma was there in my life because of all the things I know and how willing or unwilling I am to let go of those things I know or believe I know? Now you've got something else. So I asked him, I said, what do you think this work is all about? He looked at me and he said, well, it's about confirming what I know. And I don't know if you can teach me what I don't know because I only know what I know. And I'm comfortable with it. And that's as far as he'll ever go. So we chip away every week, a little bit here, a little bit there. It's laborious, it's difficult, and it's very, very impossible to really take a person very far when the only way you can help them is by their willfulness. Something has to be born in a person for them to flower. Spiritual work is about a flowering. It's about the flowering of the heart inside a person's life. Lao-tzu. Therefore, the stiff and the unbending is the discipline of death. And that is truly real. I've watched people. They are dead long before they ever hit the ground, as it were. And they just work in an unyielding way that is very painful. They really believe they know. It's all about sustaining some sense of fear and rationalizing the fear as spiritual. How they do it, I do not know. I look at them and I say, that is not the way, that is not the way, that is not the way. And they'll sit there and go, I know, but. And it's all these things that we do in the unwillingness of our mind to preserve and protect a certain state of emotion. And I'll tell you what it is. It is something that everybody cherishes. It is the state of hate. People love to hate because it makes their love feel so big. Their emotional love feels so big, so right. Well, if you hate the commies, if you hate the disease, if you hate the wrongs of the world, the criminals of the world, if you hate a certain political group, then you must be right about everything else in your life and you must know love. And that's the way people are. The only way they can love is through hate. And when you question them on this and you make them look at the absurdity of it, they still go back willfully to hate. Hate is the way they know love. And that will always be true for those who can only love out of emotion. I can't help a student go any further than that. They can come and do the meditations and go through the motions of them, but it is their hate that keeps them back. I had a student recently call me and say, I want to make sure I got this right, and I don't understand this, and I don't understand that. And I said, how many more times would I explain it to you where you would get it? The only way you're going to get it, I said to the person, is to drop their hate. They looked at me and said, I can't do that. And I said, why? And he said, because I won't feel protected. I won't feel safe. And that's the key. Is the only way we feel safe is through our hate. If I hate the right things, or don't make me love you, don't do things that are loving, don't you dare make me loving at you. I don't think that's what people want to hear. People are intimidated by the whole idea of don't make me angry at you. You don't know how angry I can get in vengeance and pride. My mother never punished me by saying, now, Greg, don't make me loving at you. It was quite the opposite. And when you start to look at the way we are in our life and how we revere hate, you can understand that we are the disciple of death. The death is the death of our ability to do anything spiritual, to do anything without the need for there to be hate and fear there. I want you to look at your life a minute and just really be really honest with yourself. How many things do you do in the course of a day that you can do out of pure love? Or does there have to be some kind of threat of hate involved? Something bad happening. If I don't do this, this won't happen, then that won't happen, and then this won't happen, and I'll wind up this way. That's all the logic of hate. Real love is spontaneous, and it has absolutely no sense of logic and reasoning. Its purpose is only to give compassion. Its purpose is only to advance the soul. Its purpose is to break the karma, and that's how it's done. I don't break karma through philosophy and religion. I don't break karma because my actions are better than they used to be. I break my karma because love is more important to me than hate. And that's the only thing in life that truly matters. There comes a time in everybody's life where they feel like they really need a change in their living. I offer you 3 retreats every year at Mount Madonna that are very intense, simple, yet very effective. They include meditation, Gestalt therapy, some insight work. Come to the website at aspire.org and take a look at retreats. People who are not of the heart try to understand this kind of work, and they can only do the intellectual trip. Jesus said that only children enter into the kingdom of heaven. Adults are not allowed. But one of my very favorite stories is about the little talk between Nicodemus and Jesus, and it definitely describes exactly what we're talking about, both with our karma and what it really means to make a karma change so we can move into something more meaningful. Nicodemus said, "Oh, great master." He knew Jesus was a master. He said, "There are none greater." He said, "No man can do what you do unless they were a master sent from God." And Nicodemus was interesting because he had to come in the middle of the night. He didn't want anybody to see he was sitting with this rabbi. And Jesus cuts him right off. He said, unless a man is born again, he cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven. And Nicodemus, Nico as I like to call him, had the most interesting reply to that. He said, how does a man enter into his mother's womb a second time? Unbelievably stupid, but that's the way the logical mind works. So I guess he thought he was going to call his mother and try to squeeze back in. What foolishness. It's so absurd. You have to sit there and go, really? I mean, really? But that's the way the human mind works. And that's why we miss the whole thing. We miss our life. The antidote to your karma, my karma, everyone's karma, is harmony. To come into a place of oneness where love can finally touch and transform. It means that I have to be humble again, childlike, not childish, childlike. And I have to be willing to see things from an innocent point of view rather than the cunningness of my thinking. My mind cannot be trusted. You can't trust the mind that is always trying to find an excuse of how can I do this, Jesus, if I have to enter into my mother's womb a second time. Do you realize how stupid that is? But that was his thought. And that's a metaphor, a strict metaphor for the way we live our life. How you take something very beautiful about being born again and then rationalizing it and deteriorating the meaning down to common logic and human reasoning. This is the way religion is. And all religions are based on that fundamental principle. So you can stay dummied down enough to keep handing them money over and over and over and over again. It's all about the money. So guilt and shame have to go. Oneness has to be the example of a person's life. Listen to me. The hard and the strong will fall. The soft and the weak will overcome, says Lao-tzu. Yes, the soft, the seeming weak will overcome. A child's strength at the beginning of their life is amazing. It's far more powerful than their size. And for that, it's again another metaphor for the great love that lives within you. Within something that looks very yielding, weak, and tender, there is a great strength. The child is at one with its body and with its parents and with its life. It's in that oneness that we find the ability to change our karma, to allow our karma not to be a punishment. Karma is only my punishment when I insist upon the fact that it never changes. But when I allow my karma to change based on love and the willingness to let love live me, that is when something starts to arise. That's when something meaningful happens, and that's when your heart begins to grow. When your heart starts to grow, your logic and reasoning will take a second step back, maybe even a third step back. You'll start seeing things not from the premise of what you can get and how to manipulate a situation or make it the way you want it to be, make it the way your mind can think it. You'll start looking at situations as opportunities for love. And forgiveness, compassion, understanding will be more important to you than the situation itself. It's not how things conclude, it's not how they end, it's not how they turn out. It's how they are that's really important. My karma, your karma. And it is my karma to do this program with you and for you. It is my karma to fight through the Greg stuff, to be able to share with you what I've shared with you in all of these series, in every Aspire series I've done, in every Aspire program I've done. In all of that, there has been somewhat of a wangling, a waning, a letting go. And sometimes when I truly let go, these moments happen and I get the honor of being with you. Please forgive me. Namaste. There's so much to the Three Treasures of the Tao, and I'm sure you didn't get everything that I offered here. So I go into the studio and I make very, very important CDs for you. They have all of the discourses I've offered to you here on TV, but also much more in depth. And I think you'll find them very beautiful and very meaningful. If the Tao is to your heart's content, which it is, I think you'll want to order these right away. Go to my website at aspire.org and order yours today.